in, and hopefully this works out. This is my third Zoom meeting for the morning, and the first one I got kicked out of because of internet issues. So hopefully I can stay logged in. Welcome to the January 26th version of Marshalltown Rotary virtual meetings. I'm Matt Garber. We'll kick things off with the prayer and pledge. As long as Betty can maintain her presence online, I'll turn things over to her.
Okay, Matt, you and I should probably pray for a little help with technology.
All right.
Please pray with me. When I have food, help me to remember the
Well, maybe we just lost Betty. I think John. Let's John, you want to switch over and you can be the pinch hitter for Betty?
Sure.
Kim, do you want to go ahead and just mute Betty so she doesn't accidentally just cut in?
Help me remember the job list.
Okay, I'm trying.
When I have a warm home, help me remember the homeless. And remembering, help me to destroy my complacency. Make me concerned enough to help by word. Amen.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Want me to do the prayer and pledge? I can do it.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, you are everywhere and guide everything. You are in my heart, in my mind, in my world. My certainty of your existence gives me strength, protection, and joy. Your presence and promise are my comfort. Help me to live worthy of your gifts. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, John, and for all of that. And guests, I believe we do have at least two, right? Floyd Hammer and Kathy Hamilton. Are they?
Yeah, Floyd and Kathy are going to introduce themselves.
Okay, take it away.
So, I'm Floyd Hammer, and this is Kathy Hamilton, my wife. We currently are members of the Des Moines Noon Rotary Club held at Wakanda, and we have offices in Des Moines. And since COVID, we haven't been to Des Moines very much, and we're wanting to be part of a meeting Rotary Club. And as I spoke to Kim and Mary yesterday, you folks are going to start looking at one another again, nose to nose, in March. And we'd like to come down and see if you think we look like maybe somebody that could join your club or not. And if we are, we'd like to be considered.
All right. I'm sure you guys would be more than welcome to join us. Do we have any other visitors or guests online? Either go ahead and raise your hand electronically and speak up, or enter it into the chat box real quick.
Kendra Sorensen is on, new executive director for Marshalltown Area United Way. Nancy's last Rotary meeting today, so she will be officially retiring after this Friday.
All right. Welcome, Kendra.
Thank you.
Are we seeing any others? All right, I'll not seeing any other indications, so we'll move on to the next thing on the list is Student Rotarians by Jackie Wyant. Jackie, are you online, able to make some introductions?
Yeah, I don't think we have any new Rotarians here today, but we do think, it's hard for me to tell if if there's any students here today, because we certainly want to thank them for
Tyra,
having been present, and hope that they have learned a lot about Rotary and will move forward when they return to our community, hopefully after their post-secondary training, to become members in our community and eventually members in the Rotary.
Okay, sounds good. Other announcements, looks like the attendance for last week, we had 46 on Zoom. According to our participant rating today, we got 32 so far. So Mike Schlesinger, did you have an announcement for the food box donations?
Yes, thanks, Matt. So far, we've already had 91 bags sold for the emergency food box. We're going to be taking orders through February 8th. So if you haven't done so, please let me know and we'll get those orders in. And then we'll be delivering those bags to the emergency food box shortly before Valentine's Day.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Scott Neff, did you have something to say about the Rotary Foundation today?
Yes, I did, Matt. Thanks. So Mary asked me to just say a few brief words about the Rotary International Foundation and asked me to be the chair for that effort this year. So this is my first effort to get some information out to the club. So it's International Foundation's always been kind of near and dear to my heart. 10 years ago, when I was the club president, we did achieve 100% Paul Harris Fellow status, which meant that every member of the club had contributed at least $1,000 to the foundation. And that'll be one of the goals in the coming year, is to work people towards that status. For those of you who have contributed in the past, I really want to thank you for your generosity and for contributing to the mission of service above self. The foundation funds the Polio Plus campaign, which is the largest philanthropic effort in the history of the world. It continues its mission to eradicate polio worldwide, as well as supplying some support supplies and clean water to millions around the world. When you contribute to the Rotary Foundation, you can be assured your dollars will be spent well and it will make a difference. In any donations you make in the coming year that are designated to the Polio Plus through the foundation will receive a 2-to-1 match from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So it's a noble cause, and you can expect your money to be spent wisely and invested efficiently. Donations to the foundation can also make their way back to our club in the form of grants. We've had success in that in the past, and if you're familiar with the water projects that Greg Brown and Dennis Drager have been involved with, those were wonderful contributions to the world health. I also remember back when John Fink was the president, the solar oven project, I believe, benefited from a foundation grant as well. So the money can make its way back to our local club if you do. I'm here asking you today to consider sign up for a recurring gift to the foundation. It can be added to your quarterly bill easily. Some of the things I thought about when I reviewed our giving, if you're like me, your family's expenditures for entertainment have really taken a hit in the last year. So maybe look at reallocating some of those to help out the less fortunate in our world. Another thing I thought about, many of us have achieved a senior excuse status with the club, which means we only pay for the meals that we eat. Uneaten meals that we collect from normal membership is a big source of funding for our club's activity and donations. And I'd ask you to consider, if you are senior excused, maybe add a cost of a few unused meals to your quarterly bill that you get. So in closing, I'd just like to say I'm going to work with ways to get information out to the club about the foundation on a periodic basis. So not sure how that's going to look, whether it be emails or postings on a website or some in-person updates like this today, but we will try and keep Rotary Foundation front of mind for all our membership. And thank you to everybody that has contributed. I look forward to inviting everybody to contribute to the effort. So thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you, Scott. Oh, by the way, when you get the tractor out, once you come down my road, open up my road and my driveway this afternoon. Appreciate it.
This is officially Do Nothing Tuesday. We're not going to do that today. Sorry, Matt.
Bummer. All right. Next up on the announcements, we've got Heidi Drager talking about Josh the Otter. Heidi, are you?
Yep, I'm here.
There
Can
you
hear
are.
me?
Yep.
All right. I don't know if you can see my screen or not. So Josh the Otter is a water safety program that teaches children to be safe in and around water. The program includes a storybook about a baby otter that learns to float and only go into water if he has adults' permission. You might remember this program, Matt, because I think you were the president the year we started this.
Yep.
Our program targets kindergarten students with the goal to present the program and give a book to take home to every student in the Marshalltown schools. The Rotary Club of Marshalltown has partnered with the school system. A special thank you to Theron Schutte, Julie Thiede, and Bethany Warren for helping to coordinate the presentations and getting us the number of students that we need books for. We also partner with the Y, who Carol Hibbs and Kim Jazz Ramirez and Shelley Lechner help coordinate and then do the presentations to the schools. This is technically our third year supporting the Josh the Otter program. Last year we were geared up for the program, had the books in hand, but we were not able to do the program because the schools were shut down. So this year we are presenting to the kindergarten classes and the first grade classes to catch up with those that missed out last year. Each kit costs $3.95 and it includes the storybook and the coloring activity book. And we offer them in English and Spanish versions. And depending on the kindergarten class sizes each year, the program will cost about $1,500 total to administer. If you're able, we would greatly appreciate a donation of any size to the program. Our goal is that our Rotary Club adopts this program as an ongoing effort, and we are able to present this program every year. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Heidi. Any other announcements that didn't necessarily get on the agenda? Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hands. So next up is happy news. Does anybody have any happy news to share on this nice snowy day? Used to be these snow days when we got drifted in. It was like a vacation day, but anymore with all this remote working and it's we're practiced up and we can stay productive. I guess I don't know if that's happy or bad. We can at least keep business going. I've got 2 school-age kids still logging into classes, and I've got a teacher spouse that's it still counts as a virtual learning day. It's not really a snow day, so there's got to be some sort. I've drug that out and given everybody enough chance to think about happy news. There's got to be something up there.
Sarah Rosenblum has something.
Yeah, I'll lower my hand. I'm happy to announce that the library will be returning to the walkthrough phase on Monday, February 1st. That is it's still somewhat limited service, but people, right now we're just in curbside where people place their orders, but we have a lot of people we know want to come in and browse or use the computer. So starting on Monday through Friday, noon to 6, we'll be open for walkthrough. It is limited. You will need to wear a mask. We are also adding on Thursday morning 10 to 6 because we had some feedback from especially parents with small children with napping schedules. And and then we'll be doing curbside also. So certainly today we had people, like as soon as we opened the door or opened the phone lines, we were taking some stuff out to people in the snow. So I would have been home if I didn't have to be here, but I'm happy that we're hopefully, and this is the start of moving back to new normal service. So keep your fingers crossed. And so we look forward to seeing you at the library, but you can continue to use the curbside service.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sarah. Any other items anybody wants to share? Seeing none, we'll turn things over to our program. Deidre, were you going to introduce the esteemed speaker?
Sure, I can introduce our friend Todd Steinkamp, a man who needs very little introduction. He did want me to share with you that he's originally from Carroll, Iowa, and he and his wife Christy have 2 daughters named Brenna and Michaela. He's been in radio since 1997 and has worked in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Moved back home in 2003 to host the Morning Kick show, and formed the company Trending Media in 2017, along with two partners, and purchased Iowa's Best Country, Kicks 101.1, and News Talk KFJB in 2018. And then I asked Todd, since we did know him so well, to share one true fact and two untrue facts about himself. And he'll reveal the one true at the end. So Todd had to climb a 400-foot radio tower to get a flock of crows off because they were interfering with the signal. Or Todd got his first full-time radio job because another DJ was arrested for being the getaway driver in a bank robbery. Or Todd did a voiceover in a Pixar film as Tony the Toad that was cut out of the film due to time restraints. If you pay attention at the end, Todd will let us know which one of those is true. But happy to have you here this morning or this afternoon to share with us your NASCAR history.
Thanks, Deirdre. I appreciate that. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. All right. So now I'm going to attempt to share screen. I think we're all getting quite the indoctrination into technology here lately. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah. Awesome sauce. We're doing really good here. And let's see. Let's start the slideshow. Maybe. There we go. All right, so thank you, Deirdre, very much. So my journey into NASCAR, as some of you may or may not know, I've been announcing for NASCAR and IndyCar, starting at Iowa Speedway quite a few years ago. So I'm just going to walk through that process and some of the fun things I've had the opportunity to be a part of. So I didn't really get into NASCAR. I was never really into it. It's like a bunch of cars turning left. Who cares? It's boring. You know, the whole thing. But I really ended up getting into it when I was living in Wisconsin, hosting the morning show at WCOW there. We had a driver by the name of Tom McClintock. And so one of the perks that we got was able to go down to the races and go into the pit area and see the races up close at La Crosse Speedway. And that's really when I got hooked into NASCAR, just as a fan of NASCAR itself. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but then as Deirdre said, we moved back here in 2003. In 2006, Iowa Speedway opened for its first race in September of 2006, and that kind of gives it a prelude and everything that's going on here. So in 2008, I was contacted by the management at Iowa Speedway about hosting and airing a weekly race show for Iowa Speedway. Now, that show aired every Monday night from 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. during the entire NASCAR season. For those who don't know, the NASCAR season itself, the full season, it starts mid-February and ends mid-November. So the first 3 years that we did Horsepower Hour on Kicks 101.1, it was from February until November every Monday night for an hour. And that made for a lot of scheduling and guests, and it was fun, but it was a very long season. Our very first race show, that's myself with Rusty Wallace and then Vice President at Iowa Speedway, Craig Armstrong. In 2009, so we got the collaboration together and we started something called the No Name Race Show. Like I said, Rusty Wallace was our first guest, and we allowed our fans to name the show. So the first show was the No Name Race Show, but then by the end of the show, we took all the submissions from all of our listeners and Iowa Speedway fans, and they named it Horsepower Hour. So that's how that name came about. You may or may not know that Rusty Wallace designed Iowa Speedway, so it's truly built by a driver for drivers. Iowa Speedway is a 7/8 mile oval track, runs like a super speedway. It is, I'm not being biased here, literally some of the best racing that I've ever seen has happened at Iowa Speedway. It's a small track racing, but it races like a super speedway, 3 grooves of racing on that thing. It's quite intense to see. And I highly encourage anyone who, again, thinks like I thought back in the day, oh, it's just a bunch of people turning left the whole time and a bunch of rednecks chewing Copenhagen and drinking Budweiser. I highly encourage you to attempt to go to a race once. I really do think that you will be hooked when you see everything that goes into it. So while doing Horsepower Hour in the studio each week, I was always joined by someone from Iowa Speedway, whether it was the president or the vice president. They were always my co-host. Before we get to the announcing part, we also did something else too. In 2011 and 2012, I was asked to join the PA team, but I was just the color guy. So my duties during the day at Iowa Speedway were to sit there and read sponsorships throughout the day, and maybe help during the race for the announcer as they were announcing what the race was, what was happening inside the race. I would just sit there and add color remarks like, yes, you're right. No. Uh-huh. You know, really clever, really in-depth analysis like that is what I offered. So the first 2 years, that's all I did was just color announcing. Now, something else we did do at the time too, we actually started a TV show for Iowa Speedway. So I hosted Talkin' Track for Iowa Speedway, and I did that from 2011 to 2013. We hosted that show, and that aired on Mediacom on a weekly basis too. So besides doing Horsepower Hour and besides doing the color track announcing, I would also host a TV show for Iowa Speedway as well. So finally, in 2003, I was asked to become the main announcer for Iowa Speedway, and that's when the fun really began for me. So like I said earlier, being the color guy, honestly, was really easy. I sat in an air-conditioned room, sat on my butt, read some sponsor messages, and the main announcer did pretty much all the heavy lifting. So, but as the main announcer, that drastically changed for me. So just to give you a typical idea of what a weekend was like, about a week before the race or so, we got something called a minute by minute. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It literally broke down the entire race weekend, minute by minute, as to what was going on for my duties, which where I was going to be announcing, what I was going to be announcing, where I needed to be, all of that. You take my job times everyone else's at the track, and everyone had a different minute by minute. A lot goes into an entire race weekend, no matter at what track you are. And that goes for any baseball game, football game, basketball game that you ever watch on TV or that you ever attend. That there's always a minute by minute for when the national anthem is going to be sung and who's going to sing it, what time they need to be down there, and who's going to be accompanying them, and who the dignitaries are going to be. So there's always these minute by minutes that are laid out to kind of show what your weekend is like. My weekend would start the Monday before race weekend. So before I did any announcing at the track, I had to prep for the weekend. So by prepping for the weekend, I'd have to have all the previous weekend's race information and all that information coming into the current race week. So every night for 2 to 3 hours, starting on the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before race weekend, I would prep. So it could be the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Gander Outdoor Truck Series that was coming to Iowa Speedway. I would have to know what car or truck chassis that was coming to the track. I'd have to know what their setup was. I'd have to know who the sponsors were for that week. Where did they finish the week before? What awards or penalties did they have coming into the week? Where are they in the point standings, so on and so forth. So there's just a lot of information that had to be digested. And I would have a thick 3-ring binder with all this information with sticky notes and colored highlighted pens and everything to make all these notes. And so I would have all this information being able to go into the race weekend and logically talk about what was going on. So that was the boring part. The fun part starts on Thursday nights. We would start something called Horsepower Hour. So we would take our Horsepower Hour show and we take it live inside of the Newton Club at Iowa Speedway, and we opened it up to all the fans. So everyone was able to come in. It never hurt too that the bar was open. So everyone would start getting their drinks on, and we'd always have free pork burgers from the Iowa pork producers. Sometimes Culver's was there giving out free custard ice cream. So we pretend it was us who was drawing the people in, but it was the alcohol and the food most likely that everyone was coming to be a part of. But this is where it really started getting fun, because this is where the anticipation for race week really started coming about. The drivers would come on with us during the race shows. We'd interview them, and then following that, when we take a commercial break, all of the fans would have the opportunity to get a chance to meet with the drivers. And I got to tell you, I've met a lot of sports people and just celebrities over my life. Some of these IndyCar drivers and NASCAR drivers are some of the most friendliest guys and gals you will ever meet. That's Elio Castroneves posing with a fan's daughter inside the Newton Club at Iowa Speedway. These guys would sign autographs, they'd take pictures, they would just talk because they are fans of racing. And anytime they have a race fan come up to them and start talking about their race or a race, they were engaged, and it was great to see. So these guys and drivers, guys and gals, just did an amazing job when it came to that. This is Brad Keselowski. This is probably one of our bigger shows. Brad is a NASCAR champion inside of NASCAR, and he came down for one of the races and raced in the Xfinity Series. And so he came in, and it was just a really fun time to have him and to have this crowd of people there that were excited to be a part of this. The alcohol was always fun because that would loosen everybody up and everyone would want to engage. I may have had a few drinks at the time, so that was always fun. And the atmosphere was just fun. This was always the kickoff to a race weekend at Iowa Speedway. So following Horsepower Hour on Thursday, we'd wrap that up about 8:30 on a Thursday if the race was a Friday, Saturday. And then my announcing gig at Iowa Speedway would start, let's say, on a Friday morning, bright and early. My call time would be, depending on when the gates opened and when qualifying and practices was, but usually I'd be there maybe 8 o'clock or so, starting on race day. And what I'd have to do is I'd have to get the updated entry lists, get the qualifying times, when's practice going to happen, and get all that updated information, because that stuff would change even during race day. That stuff would change, especially if we had weather delays, which we'll talk about a little bit later. There would always be a TV meeting, especially for the Xfinity Series, the Gander Outdoor Truck Series. Those races were always televised, and everything is controlled through TV, down to the absolute second. Everything is controlled by television. So everything that I did on the track from announcing was timed out through my handlers, which you'll meet soon, but then also through television, because we had to time it down to when the broadcast started for TV. We had to time it down to when the race started, when the national anthem was going to happen, when the flyover from any jets or anything that would happen. And then we always had to try and be done on time too. So all this was coordinated to be done and start at a certain time. So those TV meetings were probably some of the more important meetings that we would have for race weekend. There would also be technical meetings that would happen. So no matter what it was, whether it was practice, whether it was qualifying on the track, no matter it was, I was up in the PA booth calling that action on the track. One of the other things that I would do then throughout the day is when I was the lead announcer at the track is I would do MC events. So we may have, you see here, Richard Petty, which was one of the very cool experiences to meet a legend like him, being able to do a Q&A with him for the fans. And then sometimes I would go to a sponsor tent and one of the drivers might come up and talk to the crowd there. So I would MC all these events that would be going on throughout the day prior to anything that was going on with the track. And depending on when the qualifying was or when the practice was, it just really fluctuated as to what was going on. So that's why I needed to have handlers. So these are my handlers. I would have different handlers throughout the weekend, but my two favorite handlers are here. That's Carl on the right-hand side, and that's Natalie on the left-hand side. So Carl, he's from Wisconsin, super nice guy. He was my handler throughout the day. So he had the minute-by-minute sheet, and he would get me where I needed to go. He had all the wireless microphones. He had all the technical equipment. He was in contact with the booth the whole time. So he would take me to go do a Q&A with a driver at a sponsor tent. And then I would have to go down and do some announcements down in the media center and so on. So he shuttled me all throughout the track and took me where I needed to go. When it was time to do the actual race, the pre-race activities, he turned me then over to Natalie. It'd be Natalie or Alex sometimes. They are from CSM, and they're a company that goes to all these tracks and other sporting events, and they handle all the sound, they handle all the pre-production, all the videos that you would see, the fireworks, whatever it was. And they're in direct contact with television as well. So all my cues, all my commands, everything I did all came from JAG. So they basically got me everywhere I needed to go. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this. This is, I should make it, some of the announcing that I did, we didn't always have the handlers with us. So if it was a lower tiered race, like an ARCA race or a K&N race or something like that, those weren't shown on broadcast television. So a lot of times those were the easy races. I just stand at the side of the stage, read the script that I had, introduce the drivers, do driver introductions, and then I'd go up and call the race from the PA booth. Those were the easy ones. The hard ones are, again, when we're working with television, because everything had to be timed out. So hopefully this will come through. This is, I think, a video that Carl took, and this is just kind of a montage of the driver introductions and the pre-race activities at Iowa Speedway. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this and see this.
No sound, Todd.
Matt, I can see you. Are you able to hear that or not?
No sound.
No sound. Okay. Well, so I'm talking is what's happening there. So I'll play this and just kind of give you an idea. So this is, so as you'll see, my handler there will hold up hand signals to me. She's counting me down every time I can move forward to the next thing. So I'll introduce the drivers. She'll give me the hold sign, which you see she's doing there. She'll give me countdown signs, which you can see as well. So she's telling me to hold there. And this is as the drivers are going across the stage. And then you can see she's going to count me in. So everything I read, everything that I did was controlled by television down to her and then her to me to make sure that everything timed out right. This is going into the national anthem. All this stuff was broadcasted, so everything had to be timed out correctly. So we're introducing the national anthem here. You always had to back time to the flyover, which I'll talk about. This is the command to start engines that you'll see here. She's counting me down. We give the command to start engines. And believe it or not, the command is drivers start your engines. Used to be gentlemen start your engines. Then awesomely, we started seeing more ladies get into racing. So it was drivers start your engines. You don't see it here, but literally every single time there was a sign and it read driver start your engines, because people would absolutely freeze when they had to give that command to start engines. And you would think you could command driver start your engines. You think you could remember 4 words, but people would freeze up and not be able to remember it. So that was always written down for them. This one, again, since you can't hear it, this was this was at 1 o'clock in the morning. This was probably one of the most memorable driver introductions that I had the opportunity to do. This was during the NTT IndyCar series. We had thunderstorms rolling through. We had severe weather. We had to evacuate the stands that night numerous times. It was a cluster, you know what. And finally, at 1 o'clock in the morning, this was happening. And one of the very cool things about this, you'll see it switch. The video's not great when it switches. But I had the opportunity to introduce NASA Flight Director Gene Kranz from Mission Control in Houston, Texas. And that was for the historic 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. And so Gene Kranz came on and he officially named the race the Apollo 11 Moonwalk 300. And so I got to introduce Gene Kranz into doing this. It played on the big screen, and it was probably an extreme highlight that I'll never forget. That was at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was so surprised to see the amount of fans that held on during that time period. And then we'll get the actual drive to command here too. Which of course you can't hear, but so we give the drive to the engine, or the command to the drivers to start their engines at 1 o'clock in the morning. And that race finally then ended up at being done about 3 o'clock in the morning. It was not fun at the time, but boy, looking back now, it was quite the memory. A lot of crazy stuff happened. I got some cool pictures to show you of that as well. So jumping ahead now, actually, this is some of the drivers from Victory Lane. So every time there was a race, obviously, I was in Victory Lane and interviewed the drivers after they were done. So this was after one of the Xfinity races with Chris Buescher. This was Eric Jones winning at a NASCAR Xfinity race. This is actually one of our parties that we had following one of the races on the front stretch. Joseph Newgarden, he was the winner in the NTT IndyCar series. And who else? Kurt Busch, brother of Kyle Busch, he came and raced and won after a long hiatus. So it was good to see him win. Again, all these guys bring their families to the track. They bring their kids to the track. It is not uncommon to be heading down to the media center at the track. And these guys will be out there playing with their kids. And some of them will bring portable basketball hoops. And this in the RVs. Oh my gosh, the RVs. You would not believe the money that some of these drivers have wrapped up into these RVs, but this is where they spend time with their families. So they need to have something nice like that. So it was great to see the kids always and their wives and the husbands all come down and be a part of these racing activities. Ross Chastain in the Gander Outdoor Truck Series, he won when this picture was taken. However, we came to find out after this picture was taken, it wasn't but 15 minutes later, it turns out that he failed post-race inspection and the win was taken away from him. So he was smiling here because he was a winner. 15 minutes later, he was the smile was turned upside down, and Iowa's own Brett Moffitt was actually declared the winner of that Gander Outdoor Truck Series race. So Ross was very happy there, but not after the fact. Then in November of 2018, thanks to a recommendation actually from our own Denny Grabenbauer and Toby Cruz, who runs Marshalltown Speedway, I had the opportunity to go to Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And this was the big time, right? This was at Iowa Speedway. I had just been calling the Xfinity races and the Truck Series races, some of the ARCA races, the K&N races, the IndyCar Series. But finally, I got to call a cup race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And this track is beautiful. It's a 1.5 mile oval out in Las Vegas. Anyone who's ever been out there from here in Iowa, everything's super flat. But in Las Vegas, you got the mountains, and it's just really cool. The track sits out there in the desert. Really neat to see. Beautiful facilities out there at Las Vegas. Like I said, it's a 1.5 mile track. This was an early morning call as the sun was coming up over the track. This is one of the flyovers. One of the cool things about this track is in the distance back here, this is actually Nellis Air Force Base back here. So throughout the day, you would see jet fighters and cargo planes and everything taking off consistently. They would do a lot of their maneuvers and stuff. So you'd be watching a race and you'd also see maneuvers happening. This was the flyover from the race. So they would literally take off from the base, they'd circle, and then when it's time for the national anthem, they would come flying by. What a cool scenario that was to be a part of. So that was really fun. I usually fly out to Vegas. I did this 3 times, announced 3 times at Las Vegas. I'd typically fly out there, get there on a Wednesday. Then I'd have to be at the track on a Thursday for all the prep and everything. And then typically Friday would have been like the truck race, Saturday would have been the Xfinity race, and Sunday would have been the Cup race. And then I'd fly back to Iowa on a Monday then after everything was done. So Las Vegas was a really, really cool experience. These are just some random pictures to wrap things up, and a couple of random videos too. This was that night of all those storms. This was at Iowa Speedway when we had the IndyCar race like at 1 in the morning. This was just some of the pictures that were taken out there. Just some beautiful shots of the storm after it passed. The sun was still setting on this one. Just really, really beautiful. One of my other cool things that I've had the opportunity to do is become friends with Rusty Wallace. That's been awesome. I met Rusty again back in 2008, and we've become friends since then. On October of 2016, I had the opportunity to jump in a car with Rusty, and a funny story about that, I'll let this play. This is us going around Kansas Speedway. And what you can't hear is Rusty, keep in mind, Rusty's a Hall of Fame driver. And at this point right now, Rusty's doing about 135 miles per hour. Now watch what hands coming off the wheel. It's no big deal. I'm trying to look cool and collected. I maybe should have wore a diaper or something that day because what he was doing was terrifying. And he was explaining how when the rubber comes off, it marbles. So you get these little gravel pellets of rubber along the track. And he's talking about, yep, super slick out here today, and talking about what adversity the drivers are going to find. And here he is in a Ford Mustang, just a street normal Ford Mustang, taking us around the track, and it's no big deal to him doing 135 miles per hour. Funny story about Rusty, the first year I belonged to the advisory council for MRN and NASCAR, and he was given some rides one day to us, and it was one of the pit cars from Kansas Speedway, and he blew the transmission in that pit car, in that pace car. They got him another car, and he blew the tires in that pace car. So from that point on, they said, you can no longer take our pace cars out to drive on the track. So what they did the next year is they went to Hertz Rent-A-Car and rented a Ford Mustang, but did not tell them what was going on. So someone is now driving a Ford Mustang out of Hertz Rent-A-Car that was abused all to heck by Rusty Wallace. And they just made sure not to tell anybody what was going on with that car. Had the opportunity to do a 2-seater IndyCar ride as well. That was really cool. Rusty's was a little scary because it was just a regular car. This was insane. The amount of downforce that these Indy cars are able to apply. You feel like you should be flying off the track when you're taking these IndyCar rides, especially around Iowa Speedway, a 7/8 mile oval. The speeds that they would reach during a race, they're pulling 4 to 5 Gs in an IndyCar race, and they're doing that for like 2 hours at a time. Just being in one of these cars, we weren't doing near the speeds that were maybe 140 or so, maybe 135. Your head, just holding your head in place as you're going around the turns, your neck got sore. So the amount of stamina and work that these drivers put in to be able to race these lengths of time at some of these tracks is quite impressive. I talked earlier about the fans, and literally they become family. A lot of the people that I've seen over the years who work with NASCAR, you see them twice a year, but they're like family. A lot of the fans are just that. They are big fans. These are two of our fans out of the Iowa National Guard, and they were stationed overseas. They sent these pictures into us one time just to show like we love Iowa Speedway, and they just absolutely great fans and a great family that racing has. Something you won't see whether you're watching in NASCAR, whether you're watching a football game on TV or a baseball game, you see the announcers. That's Michael Waltrip. He would always be one of the TV announcers. These guys are always dressed up from the waist up. From the waist down, you can see he's rocking the gym pants. You'll see that a lot with a lot of these announcers. We're in the PA booth off to his right there, and the TV compound was right next to us in that booth. So a lot of times when you're watching these announcers from their booths, calling these games or races or whatever, they're dressed like that from up, but down below they could be wearing shorts, flip-flops, whatever it was. So just a little peek behind the scenes as it was. And final thing I got here is this is one of our final pictures from Iowa Speedway. Great group of people. This was after the final Xfinity race. We would always have an after staff party at Hobo Hill at Iowa Speedway, where moonshine would end up showing up and drinks would be plentiful, and everyone was just satisfied to the nines that we got through a race season. So it was always a very good time. So with that, that's kind of the presentation. Any questions I can answer for anybody? No? Awesome. I guess here, do I need to click on, did I see a chat? Okay. I guess I need to answer the questions, or which one's true, which is false. Deirdre said, had to climb a 400-foot tower to get crows off to get the radio signal back on. That's false. Starred in a Pixar movie as Tony the Toad, but it got cut for time. That is false. What is true is the first full-time radio gig I got was, I got a call from my program director at like 11:30 at night saying, can you come in and host the overnight show? And I said, sure. What happened to Will? Will was the guy, and he informed me that Will had been arrested for being the getaway driver in a bank robbery. So I owe the start of my professional radio full-time career to Will, who got arrested for being a getaway driver in a bank robbery. I don't know where Will's at now. We're not keeping in touch, so I couldn't tell you. Just seeing, awesome, okay. Okay, unless there's any questions, that's it for me.
Nothing in the chat other than Chief Tupper, see Budweiser, question mark, Busch Light or Natty Light. Not sure. Must be an inside story there. I don't know.
Well, what was I drinking, or what was being drank out there? All the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Todd. Great program. And just like those on-air announcers, we won't ask anybody on this to stand up and show what we're wearing from the waist down. So, especially Mr. Neff. It's hard to say what he's wearing. There we go. Screen's flipping around there a little bit. All right, well, we're approaching 1 o'clock. I've got another meeting, Zoom meeting here at 1. So next week will be February 2nd. Robin Lilienthal will talk about Marshalltown Community College, or I'm assuming she's talking about the Marshalltown Community College. She's the provost out there. So we'll do the 4-way test. Does everybody got it memorized? Should we all be on mute and read it? So of the 4-way test, of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? I don't have a bell to ring, so we will just imagine it. So sign off and have a good week, everybody. Thanks for participating.
Thank you. Great job, Matt. Thank you.